Well, welcome to the first issue of Local History Podcast. I'm Jim Wilkerson, and I'm with Doug Warren.
All right.
And we're in the middle of Historic Preservation Week here in Decatur, Illinois.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about preservation.
Why does one want to preserve anything? Why not just a brand new house?
That's right.
Yeah.
And, one of our friends, Brigida Kapp, she mentioned this just this week. She said, if you want to preserve something, you can do it. But if you don't want to, you can think of a million reasons why you shouldn't, or why you can't, or why it's too hard or costs too much. But really, if you want to save something, you can do it.
You can do it.
It takes work.
Yep.
It takes money.
Dedication. It's long term. It never ends. But it becomes a way of life, and it becomes something you have pride in all the time. And you can certainly impress friends, relatives. Life is a little bit different. Your furniture is much bigger than normal because the rooms are big and they're tall. And
right now where we are is in the south parlor of the James Milliken Homestead, a place that both you and I love.
Yes.
And this is a perfect example of big furniture, big fireplaces, big doors.
It's just marvelous. 14-foot ceilings. You just can't imagine houses like this today. And the woods that are in this house are just so unique and so different. Why not preserve them?
That's right.
Why would you want to have treated pine when you can have this beautiful, beautiful English walnut, American walnut, which is called butternut, just beautiful stuff. Yeah.
And I know you can share why you got into preservation, and I'll start off. I can really pinpoint when I got involved and when I got interested in preservation, and that was around, I think, 2018 or 2019. I loved history for a long time, but really didn't. It was like a switch went off in my mind, and it was when the Staley Pump House was going to get torn down.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up, anytime we'd drive over the bridge there on Lake Decatur, I would look at that, and I think, man, that's a neat building. It goes right into the water. And I remember being on a boat. I don't remember whose boat it was. We didn't have a boat, but I was in someone's boat, probably my Uncle Don's, possibly, but floating by it.
Reach out and touch it.
Yeah, and just seeing the brick going down into the water, to me, it was really spooky. But then I'd heard that you could go in it, and I'd always wanted to go in. And then when I saw that it was going to get demolished, I was like, oh, I got to try to find a way to get in there, because that was one of my hopes to someday go in. And I just couldn't get it done. It was not safe. And then, of course, at that time, I think there were a group of people who were trying to save it. And at that point, I was like, I joined and said, yes, let's save this. But then I soon realized that that's not really the time to try to save. It never hurts to try to save it at the last moment, but that's not the time to get involved. The time to get involved is long before any talks happen about tearing it down.
Right.
And so that's why I said, oh, I got to go out there and get some pictures of the pump house. I got to do some drone pictures and video before they tear it down, because I've never seen any drone pictures of it.
Wow.
I want to get that done, and I'll donate it to the Staley Museum. And that's what I did. I made a video for them. But that was my way of kind of helping preserve at least a little bit before it gets taken down. And then that just kind of started everything for me in my mind. About, hey, the things you care about, if you don't take care of them, you lose them.
Yeah, I'll say perhaps I even go back to my parents. I was raised in St. Louis in an older part of town, and we had uncles who were out building new houses, and my parents were totally opposed to that. They said, you should stay right here. These are wonderful old homes. And Dad, we would never end the work that we would be doing on the house. So I learned a lot of hands-on work right there. Of course, I'm young, and I didn't want to stay with it. I wanted to go out with the uncles and have a new house, right?
Yeah.
With all new electricity and things that didn't have 18 extension cords plugged into them. But then I didn't really get involved again until actually I moved here, and my wife and we actually looked at the Mueller house. And we looked seriously at it. We were in it numerous times. It was up for sale in the late 1980s. Serious look. We thought we could restore this thing and go for it. Ultimately, we did not do that. I wish I would have. But then we did move to Springfield, where we bought older, 110-year-old house. Not as grand as the Milliken homestead, but it was a wonderful old house, and did a lot of restoration work. And then moved to another house that was a little bit older in Hannibal, Missouri. And absolutely stunning house with all kinds of stained glass windows and just beautiful, beautiful house. So that was a lot of work, and I had plenty to do in my off hours, and ran into one of the better preservationists, I suppose, in the country, who used to be on This Old House. He was on the television show that followed This Old House. So he had 15 million regular viewers, and one day they told him, you're going to have to start selling Craftsman or some branded screwdriver or something. And he said, I quit. I won't do it. And he ultimately moved to Hannibal, Missouri, where he started a school on preservation. So I actually roomed with he and his wife for about 6 months, as we weren't certain that my job in Hannibal was going to be firm and for good. So we held on to the house in Springfield. And there I was renting room off of them in the second floor of a fantastic home that so when the state government comes about, you're just a territory, but you get to send somebody to Congress. The person from Missouri was the gentleman who built this house that Mr. Yap was in, 1852 or something like that.
And Yap, I don't know if you mentioned his name before, did you? Yeah.
No.
So Bob Yap.
Bob Yap.
And he was in the show, not
About this house.
about this house. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So it was his house that you lived in.
With him and his wife, and they were restoring it.
Okay.
And it was
The original owner was the guy who went
the territorial congressman. He also was one of the partners in the Hannibal St. Joe Railroad. So if you wonder where why did the Pony Express start in St. Joe? Because the railroad ended in St. Joe, and he was the guy that built that railroad. Huh. Yeah. So yeah.
That's neat.
Stunning house, and I really became more and more involved. And then we had a group over there in Hannibal called Friends of Historic Hannibal, which was just a group that got together that had bought old houses and didn't know how to restore them. So we would get together to swap stories. Where do you get these kind of hinges? Where do you get this kind of material? How do you get it? And so it became an information exchange club that we met monthly, and we would go to each person's house, and many of them, they had just begun restoration on it. So, I mean, you were sitting on sawhorses, not even chairs yet. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love about these older homes is not just the beauty of it, but the history behind them and the people who lived there, learning about the people who lived there. And it's like, you can touch a wall and know that James Milliken touched that wall. And then like the place that you lived there in Hannibal, you touched things where the original owner, with such a great history behind him, touched.
And actually, the house that my wife and I, Chris and I, lived in, the gentleman who built that house fancied himself as an architect. But in fact, he had built every trestle on every bridge on the Hannibal St. Joe Railroad. So he was a construction type of guy, and he built this amazing house. And that's what we ended up buying and living in for a number of years. So.
And do you miss some of those places?
That I do. Yeah.
Because you put
the
work
sweat
into
equity
it.
And yeah, right.
It's almost like not just memories, but I don't know how else to say it. It's got a nostalgia to it.
It does. Yeah.
You know.
I remember being on the third floor, a ladder up on the third floor, working on some corbels when I got an attack of a wasp, and I had got stung in the ears 2 or 3 times. And you're on, 3 stories up on a ladder, and you're in pain and going crazy. So those kind of things, they sort of stick with you.
That's a great memory. Well, talking about preservation, we're in the middle of Preservation Week, like we said earlier. There's a lot of homes in Decatur that need attention as well. I know the Culver House is one. There's a board there that's been working for a number of decades now, trying to get it back to its former glory, and they've done a lot of good work, but it takes a lot of time. What else do we have? I mean, the Oglesby Mansion has their own board.
Right.
We've got the Staley Museum.
Right.
We've got the Mueller Museum, not a home, but a museum that always needs support. The Macon County History Museum could always use volunteers and donations there. What am I missing? Am I forgetting?
Well, just the lovely walk down the street, Milliken Place. Each and every home is a treasure. It's just phenomenal.
We've got the Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright houses, and Marion Mahone and her work, and other architects that were just absolutely amazing.
Now, number 1, Milliken Place, the first home you come to.
Right.
It was inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright,
Inspired.
but done by
Marion Mahone and other people. But Frank Lloyd Wright had gone to Europe for 2 years, and he had not. So it was the Mueller children, 2 brothers, and they have number 1 and number 4, and they contracted for that. But there wasn't a whole lot of design work done by Frank Lloyd Wright before he takes off. So they were concerned that no construction was going on, and they sort of hammered the people up in Chicago and said, "Where's our house? We have a contract." So Frank Lloyd Wright had hired Marion Mahone. She was the first female certified graduate MIT in architecture, and she was just working in the staff there. But they turned to her and said, "Do you think you could come together and make it look like a Frank Lloyd Wright?" With some help. And she did. And those become very famous. That she did not do a whole lot of houses, because later she married a landscape architect, and they moved to Australia, and they designed the whole capital city and essentially never come back. Right.
So you said 1 and 4, those were the Marion Mahone finished those, and then of course number 2, Frank Lloyd Wright,
Absolutely.
went through completion.
Right.
Then there's number 3, which is...
Well, it's a mission style, and the name of the architect escapes me, but he was a California well-known architect.
I love that house. I mean, I love Frank
Right.
Lloyd Wright, but I love number 3. I don't know why. I just love the angles,
Right.
the colors. I just love it.
Went through it numerous times when it was up for sale. And if you had children, it would be the most amazing hide-and-seek house in the world, because there were more alcoves and closets and nooks and just all kinds of things.
And a local preservationist by the name of Lynn Potter wrote a book
Yes.
about Sarah Grady, who once lived in that home, right? And Lynn Potter, she's going to be at the Culver House this Saturday. We're doing a little celebrating for her time. She's been part of about every local preservation effort in Decatur that I can think of. So there's a great story about Sarah Grady and that house, number 3.
Number 3.
And that's, anyone can check that out. I'm sure Decatur Library has some copies, but you can also get one from Lynn. And then moving forward, you got 4 that is now the Milliken President's home.
Correct.
We don't know if that'll always be that. That wasn't always.
Right. And that was the end of it for a number of years. But there was to be another Frank Lloyd Wright, and it was going to be on the southwest side of the circle. So this drive goes back and has a circle in the back. And that house never was developed. It was one of, I think, out of Frank Lloyd Wright's life, I believe there were 7 designed homes that never were built. And that was one of those.
And is the Macon County History Museum have that like a model, or they had at one point?
We had it there. Now it's actually in Dave Bowman's house.
Oh, really?
In his attic. It's being stored because we know that it's got to come back out and be seen by people.
So if you want to see it, you have to go to Dave Bowman's house.
That's right. But it's carefully kept there. It's not like thrown in the corner.
Yeah.
Right. He has a great appreciation for that.
Now, I don't know about the next house around the circle. I know the owners, I know the names, but I don't know much about. Do you know much about? Now the numbers change.
Right. They flip-flop.
Is that 7 now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it goes from 4 to 7, and then 5, and then 6.
6. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we know number 5 pretty well.
We do.
Home of Lucian and Brigida Cap, good friends of the homestead. It's a beautiful house inside and out. Lucian lived there since he was like 1 year old. And he passed away last year on April 30th. Just a little segue here. We just started a program in his honor, Lucian Cap Art Competition. And he was big into art. He was big into the homestead, big into history. But number 5 is where he and Brigida lived, and Brigida's still there, and she's just a great, I don't even have a good word to saying what she is, but to me, she's a good friend. There's people you meet, and you're one of them, Doug, too. There's people you meet that you're like, I'm so glad I met that person, and I wish I would have met him earlier. And I only have a limited number of people I would say that about, and Brigida's one of them, and Lucian.
Lucian told me a story about he was raised, if you think right across the street from the Milliken homestead on Pine, on the east side of Pine, there's a house that faces Main Street, but then there's it's like on the alley, a little bungalow, and that's where his parents lived in 124 North Pine Street.
Okay.
And he can remember that house still when his parents bought the house back here, or built the house back here, I believe. So it was a big trade up for them. Big trade up. Yeah. He's not just a product of that house since he was very young, but he was actually this neighborhood as well.
Okay. Yeah, Brigida said that I think he was 1 when they moved in.
Oh, well, then he wouldn't remember the old place unless he had an amazing memory.
Well, he did.
But he told me about it, so yeah.
Yeah. But Milliken Place is a beautiful street. Have I forgotten about anything else? Well, there's Powers, the Powers Mansion. You want to talk about that?
Well, there is. It's a beautiful house. It's on, well, I don't know the actual address, but off of Decatur Street. And it was a little bit later, but Powers was a big name in town. His father owned the Opera House and the hotel, so the Orlando
Powers.
Right. So then the son became quite wealthy and did a number of good things, and he ends up building this absolutely stunning house. But I think that's 1918, I believe, that house was built. Ulrich is another one, and that's was a beautiful home, and it's still standing today and still looks beautiful.
Is that also on Decatur?
It is.
Okay, just a little further down.
It's right at the corner of Union, I believe it is, on the north side of Decatur Street. Turret, Queen Anne style, they call that, with the turret.
Yeah.
And it's a white brick, and it's got a big round window on the east side that's just stunning. I don't know how anybody could make that window and have it still standing 100 years later. Yeah.
Well, we've been doing some other videos lately, and so sometimes I forget where we've talked about different things. But you make that point that you don't know how things are standing. Well, the craftsmanship was a little different back
Sure.
then.
Yeah, and
I'm not putting down any
no.
craftsmen of today,
Right.
but there obviously are differences. There's a reason why quality materials, quality workmanship will make things last. But it's also
There were
more
still
expensive.
virgin hardwood forest at the time, and you could actually have real hardwood oaks and real walnuts and other things. So yeah, it makes a world of difference. But then just think, there were no power tools. So these guys had to hand saw and have it perfect, and the foreman would be screaming at the apprentice that it was off by an eighth of an inch.
On the wood and the wood isn't the same, right?
Right.
I mean, you can look at the grains
Right.
from
That speed-grown pine. Yeah.
and you can just tell how weak something's going to be by the rings and
Right.
and all that. But so there's powers, and there's other homes too. I know History of the Heartland does a good job at kind of shining a light on some of those homes.
People need to see History of the Heartland Facebook page. You'll get a good sampling of everything that's going on here, and you'll learn more than you ever knew could happen in this town, in the preservation world, in the history of this town. Phenomenal, just phenomenal.
I like some of those posts that the History of Heartland put out. They're good little teasers, but of course, if you really want to dive into things, you should go to the local history room at the Decatur Public Library.
Yes.
It's a great place to get started. You can do some research at home too. They have databases on their website that you can look at, the Omeka, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but that's a great resource. But just the local history room is a great place, and the people there are wonderful to work with. They really help you find things. But you could spend a couple hours there and learn more you never thought that you could learn.
And it doesn't have to be a Decatur Public Library card. If you're in Decatur, that card will get you into a world of things. But it's also an amalgamation of a number of local libraries. So if you have a library card, it's a good chance you're going to be connected and you'll be able to get into these databases, including, you don't have to pay for newspapers.com. You can get it through your library card. And you can go back and you can read about some of the history, some of the fantastic history in this town alone. It's just mind-boggling. So,
one of the things that kind of popped in my mind while you were talking is, like I said, when I saw the pump house that was going to be taken down, it kind of sparked something inside of me, and it told me that, hey, you can't wait too long to do something. You have to, if you care about something, you have to be proactive. But then there's times where you see things, especially social media, just complaints, and why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? Well, I can understand some of that. I hear all the time, so many people are so upset that the Carnegie Library was taken down, and I understand that. I understand that completely. You're upset, but turn it into something positive. Okay, let's just leave this negativity on the ground, and let's start being positive. Let's start. What can I do?
right.
There's so many things you can do. You could donate money. You could donate your time. You could join a board. And I feel like I've just been in it for a few years, and there's so many things I don't know. There's ways I could help that I don't know yet.
Sure. Yeah. Just spreading the word and enjoying coming out and seeing places when they have open houses. Maybe get bit by the fever of it all and learn from people and bump elbows. And you'll find people that come to open houses tend to be working on a house themselves, right? Or they have a great appreciation for it. or they may be unable to actually work on it, but they might want to come and help you work on yours. So,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, what else is going on? The Preservation Week. I know there's several open houses. I think Ann Owen said there's some carriage rides.
Carriage rides is in the churches and the stained glass windows.
And that's that's Sunday, isn't it? This Sunday.
Right.
So a lot going on this week.
So actually, many of the churches in this town on Church Street. So the seventh person to settle in this town was called Captain Allen. I don't think he was a captain of anything. I think he was like a Kentucky colonel. But his father was quite wealthy, and he came with his...
Allen, right?
David Allen.
David Allen.
He came with his wife, and I don't know how you come in a buggy, whatever it is, 900 miles from Virginia, and you just pull up one day and say, this is it. This is where we're going to live. This is the place. And there's only like 7 settlers here at that time. But he was relatively wealthy among the 7. I think he had $1,800 cash.
I don't know. I think I know where you're going with this with the churches. But
Right.
You remember Julie Carter?
Yes.
Did you know she's related?
Yes,
to him?
I did. Yeah.
I don't remember how far away. But Julie Carter, a photographer in town, and,
Right.
and
The director's on it, actually. Changed name because she married, but yeah, she was directly. And that's Alan Ben and other places in town.
South Shores area.
He also, he buys a lot of speculative land, and he bought everything west of the original city boundary line, and the western city boundary line was called Church Street. But there were no churches on Church Street when he bought that. And he later, as he got older, said to any of the congregations that had small churches within the city limits, he said, if you actually put together a plan and you hire an architect and you start doing fundraising, I will give you land to build your church on, which is how we end up with all of the beautiful old churches on Church Street.
That's a great piece of history that not many people know.
Right.
I remember the first time you told me about that, and then I was like, well, that makes sense.
Yep.
Now I understand why all these churches, it wasn't necessarily that there was some big revival.
No.
It was because there was a great opportunity, and they saw it, and the churches decided to take them up on it.
And then he actually had a brother that came to town. He was an educator. He taught. Of course, you had one-room schoolhouse, right? So all the kids of different ages would be in one room. But he began teaching school here, and he was fundamental in one of the Baptist churches. But then he moved on to Peoria. But he got to know Oglesby. Oh, we got sirens going on.
Tornado sirens.
Yeah. So he knew Oglesby. So when the University of Illinois becomes a land-grant college, it is David Allen's brother who's named as one of the original first trustees of the University of Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Amazing stuff in this town, folks.
Now, how did you learn some of that?
I just absorb it all. I read and I read and I read. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a tornado siren going on right now. I don't know if you can hear that in the video. But looking forward to this weekend. We have an open house at the homestead here from 2 to 4. And so we welcome you to come on out and check it out. We have an exhibit up in our history room. It's the history of lace. And that has been put on by Donna Williams, one of our board members. And
wonderful display. Lots of information there. You can get lost in that little room for quite a while.
And that's just another place you can learn.
Yeah.
You know, we try to change that room out once in a while to do something different. People can learn about local history and life in the times that the Millicans lived and before and all that. So
we have a number of flowering trees on the property. It looks beautiful. I think you'd enjoy coming by, but enjoy some of the old part of town here. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And Ann Owens will certainly walk you through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that's a wrap for our first
Very
episode.
good.
I don't know how often we'll do these, but hopefully you'll come back and watch them and share this. We'll have it on Facebook and YouTube, and we ask that you share that and tell people about it.
Well, we hope to go after different periods within central Illinois and all of Illinois, but not just one age or one section. So bring in lots of things, lots of people that have done lots of things that have been buried and forgotten, but let's see if we can't bring them back up and have some fun exploring and learning where the past is in this town.
Yeah, and if you have an idea for a topic, feel free to send us an email. You can get our email on our website, jamesmillikenhomestead.com. And the email is, well, now a new email. It's info@jamesmillikenhomestead.com. But we're also on Facebook. You can send us a message there. And we're on Instagram. And you can also join our email list. Once in a while, we might have something in there with one of these videos. So lots of ways to connect.
And maybe updates occasionally on new displays in our history room, and hope to make it interesting enough that we're not going to bring thousands of people out, not even hundreds, but if we can bring people that find that's my interest and I want to learn more about it, we'll have it there.
Yep, sounds great.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.